Hey guys, thanks for joining. My name is Tim Yoa. I am the chef and owner of Artist Eatery in Fort Myers, Florida. Today I'm going to give you a little tour of my restaurant, as well as make a classic French dessert that you guys can easily make at home or even escalate to a fine dining experience. So why don't we head inside and get started. So we opened up here in 2017 with a concept of quick service with high-end ingredients. We pride ourselves on sourcing from local farms, purveyors, all in Fort Myers area, and just looking for that next best ingredient. Like I said, we opened up in 2017. I designed the place on paper in 2016. And it took about 8 to 10 months build out from there. So a little bit about me. I was born and raised in Philadelphia, 25 years. I met my wife in 2008, and then in 2013 we decided to move to Fort Myers. When I moved here, I got a job at Waldorf Astoria resort in Naples. And it taught me a lot about running a business, running a restaurant. But what it also did was allow me some downtime because, as some of you might know, Southwest Florida has a lot of downtime. We're pretty seasonal, especially Naples, Florida. So I took advantage of that, sat down at a computer, developed a business plan, and then about 10 months later, we had a full build out. So 3 years in the running, we've made a pretty good name for ourselves. We have our little wall of awards here. We got 10 Best New Restaurant. Local critic gives us pretty good reviews. Top 2. Top 25 here in Fort Myers, the news press. Best of Gulf Shore Life. Best sandwich, best burger. So in just a short amount of time, using the best ingredients, we were able to kind of establish ourselves as a really premier restaurant. And we're one of the few that aren't upscale restaurants to get these awards. Like I said, we're a casual, quick service restaurant. So today we're going to make a classic French dessert. It's called Clafoutis. Many of you probably have heard of it. The traditional name for it is flonade, but that's very French, and I'm not very French, so we're just going to call it Clafoutis. The traditional version is made with whole unpitted cherries and kirsch liquor. Today we're going to use peaches. We're coming up on peach season. So it's very early in the season, which I find is the best time to do tarts and stuff like that, just because peaches still have some of their acidity, some of their tartness, and not overly sweet. So I start out with some diced peaches. And the first step is going to be to marinate the peaches. I have a little bit of vanilla rum. This comes from a local distillery in Cape Coral. It's about 15 miles or less from the restaurant. They age in minimum 3-year oak barrel Kentucky bourbon. And they use 100% Florida sugar cane for their rum. We have the rum, and we have 30 grams of powdered sugar, just going to mix that until it comes together and you don't see those little white specks of sugar. then we're just gonna let that sit while we make our batter, and that's gonna help break down those peaches a little bit and also incorporate some of that rum and vanilla flavor in there. So for the batter, we have 150 grams of eggs, and I do all of my measurements in grams. It's more precise. Instead of saying 3 eggs, 150 grams is more exact. 3 eggs could be 160 or more, depending on the size of the egg. And when you're using local eggs, they vary from size. I'm going to add the eggs to the blender. We have 60 grams of milk. And that's just whole milk. $45 grams of almond meal. It's whole blanched and pulverized almonds. Then I have powdered sugar with a little bit of vanilla bean in there. All right, we're going to start this out slow. Just get everything kind of incorporated. Then we're going to add 20 grams of all-purpose flour. I use unbleached, unbromated flour. Normal flour has potassium bromate added to it, which helps with the rising and the binding of the flour. But it also has been banned in many countries, including China, Brazil, India, Canada, Argentina. And why it's not banned in the US is beyond me. But most flour, most baked goods you find in America are going to have potassium bromate. We get unbleached, unbromated. The bleaching process is a natural process that happens in flour when you set it out, you age it, but unnatural bleaching is a quicker, more cost-effective way to bleach flour. So we'd rather pay the couple extra dollars per pound on flour and get a better product. So when you add the flour, you don't want to blend it too much. You just want to get it mixed together. You don't want to overwork the gluten. All right. So we have a fairly thin batter. You can bake this in just about anything. You can do it in your in a cast iron skillet. You can do it in a non-stick pan. Pretty much anything that you can put into the oven, you can bake one of these in. I'm using this for presentation purposes. Plus, it caramelizes nicely at high heat. So to create a little non-stick coating, a little softened butter, room temperature, unsalted. And then instead of flour, I prefer to use turbinado sugar. It creates that non-stick surface, but it also caramelizes and gives a nice depth of flavor when it bakes in there. And you don't get those little flour splotches around your baked goods. Just enough to coat. Spread it around. So if you can see in there, when I use vanilla beans, I take the bean itself that's already been scraped and I add it to a container of sugar, and that'll help me extend the life of the vanilla bean. I can use the sugar for multiple purposes, baking or otherwise. Put it in your coffee, you have vanilla sugar. Vanilla beans are really expensive right now, and who knows if they're ever going to go down, but this is one way to get the most use out of your vanilla beans. Right. So we're going to take a little bit of our batter and just coat the bottom. And clafoutis is derived from the word clafir, which in French means to fill. So you're going to notice that this batter, this dessert is mostly filling with just enough batter to kind of bind it together. Some of that nice rum marinade in there as well. We could actually put that into our batter and mix it in a little bit. Alright, then we're just gonna go about 3/4 of the way up, covering these peaches here. And this is going to go into a 375-degree oven for about 13 minutes. All right, does anybody have any questions so far on that? Just some thumbs ups, I like that. I'm going to set my timer here. All right, in the meantime, we're going to make something that I can't have dessert without, no matter what it is. It always has to be a part of my dessert, and that's ice cream. I think many people will agree that that's the case. So I take a little bit of an untraditional approach to ice cream. Traditionally, ice cream is spun with a compressor or a frozen bowl mixer, but I use KitchenAid and dry ice. There's several benefits to doing it this way. One of them is the thing that makes ice cream creamy is the amount of ice crystals that are actually in the ice cream itself when it's being spun. So if you're spinning it at a slow pace, you're going to develop more ice crystals and bigger ice crystals that are going to leave a not so creamy feel in your mouth. Where if you use dry ice or even liquid nitrogen, it freezes at such a rapid rate that the ice crystals are much smaller and throughout the ice cream, giving you a better mouthfeel. So I have some dry ice here, and what I'm doing is I'm just kind of pulverizing it a little bit. I already did this earlier to avoid making you guys hear me bang on a bowl for 10 minutes, so I'm just trying to break it up a little bit more than it already is because it's settled in the freezer. Dry ice is the solid form of CO2. It's solid at negative 109 Fahrenheit. Whereas liquid nitrogen is around negative 349. So liquid nitrogen, although it's a more effective and quicker way to make ice cream, it's hard to find, especially for home use. But if you can get your hands on it, it's much cheaper and much more efficient. I'm gonna go grab the ice cream base out of the fridge and then we'll get started. So this is going to be mint ice cream, and you notice that it is not green. That's because we steep the mint leaves in the milk overnight, and it infuses the flavor into the milk without taking on that color. And we don't heat the mint in the milk, or else that would diffuse some green and even gray colors into the milk as well. So we're going to start this at low speed. And you can use any vanilla bean based recipe that you can find online. There's some really good ones. And it's just a custard base. So egg yolks, milk, sugar. And then you can pretty much add any flavoring you want. You can either steep it in the milk, chop it up, put it in there at the end. Possibilities are endless. So you see we have a fine powder here, and that's going to allow for the dry ice to evaporate more quickly so that you don't have big chunks of dry ice in your ice cream. They will evaporate eventually, so sometimes you might want to rest your ice cream in the fridge overnight, or sorry, the freezer overnight, and let some of those gases escape. No ma'am, sorry. As you can see, we have customers coming in wondering if we're open. Originally we were open 7 days a week, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But with the pandemic closing us down for a little while, we decided to just open up Wednesday through Sunday, giving us 2 days off and then canceling out breakfast altogether. It's really given us an opportunity to step back and look at our business as a whole and see what's going to be the most profitable and economical for us to continue operating our business. So if there's any good thing that came out of this for us, that would be it. If you want to get a look inside that bowl, and it's hard to see because you have some gas coming out of there, but it almost looks like it's boiling, and that's the CO2 evaporating. And as it's evaporating, it's freezing the ice cream. And feel free, guys, to ask any questions that you might have about this, the process, or variations. We almost have soft serve consistency here. I know it's probably kind of hard to see because you can't get a good angle into the bowl, but maybe come up from the top and maybe you can see it a little bit. You can see it's getting a little bit harder for the paddle to work. And that's good. It means our ice cream's solidifying, becoming a frozen custard. About the consistency of soft serve right now, so that's almost where we want it. I'll just go a little bit more here. And then we're going to stick this in the freezer until our clafoutis is ready for it. Alright, it looks like we still got about 6 minutes on the clafoutis. So I'll take this time now for any personal questions, business questions, food questions, anything you got. Let's see. Robert, I worked with RAS 1187 when I worked at the Waldorf in Naples. And he knows that mushrooms don't belong on a Philly cheesesteak, so I'm going to have to not answer that one and divert the question and say my favorite mushroom is a chanterelle, but never on a cheesesteak. All right, does the state of Florida, City Fort Myers, have any hours or lines you have to be open? Yes, right now we just went to 50% occupancy. We previously were at 25% occupancy, which means with 38 chairs, I could seat 9 people the way I have it set up. So that wasn't practical. So what we did was we put up a large tent out front where we could move half our tables out and now we can seat 100% capacity since all the tables are further than 6 feet apart, and half of them are outside the restaurant. So we're back to 100% occupancy. We did put up like a splash guard, sneeze guard type thing around the restaurant that wasn't normally there, and that's more. It's not for the city or for the state or anything. It's more for the comfort of the customer, and we're wearing masks and we provide hand sanitizer. So as far as that's stuff that we're doing just out of the comfort for the guest, not necessarily state restrictions. Obviously, we follow all the same restrictions that we normally follow according to the health department. They're upping their inspections, so that's good. That's good for everybody. So we know who's safe and who's doing the right things, and keep the chefs on top of their game. Customer turnout, since we reopened, it's hit or miss. So we probably dropped about, on some days 50% of our business is lost. It's hard to say here because we ended we closed in March, and that's our busiest month out of the year, being seasonal. So we lost 50% of our business for the entire month in March. So right now we're going into the summer months. It usually slows down anyway, but we're at about 50% of where we should be at this time. Prep guy Marcus is also one of my co-workers, former co-workers. The biggest shiso leaf? I don't know. Could probably get a nice 3-inch shiso leaf, just enough to cover the plate. I think it's perfect. All right, let's see where we're at here. Let's go peek in the oven and see what we got going on. All right, so we got some rise there. I'm gonna close the oven, let it finish out its next 3 minutes. Any questions from non-former coworkers? Favorite kitchen tool? Let's see. My hands would be my favorite kitchen tool. Other than a knife, I think that's what we use every day. It's the staple in the kitchen. So here in Florida, I'd say we have a lot more people willing to go out. I'd say it's 25% of the people are ready to get moving on and going out. Still a lot of people nervous and don't want to go out. They're making sure we're wearing masks, and I think in the next couple months it should loosen up a little bit. We open up a little bit more every week, so I think the reception from our customers has been good. But like I said, people are still a little bit hesitant to go out. A lot of takeout, carry out, not so much people eating in the restaurant. Someone asked, best advice for future chefs. My best advice for future chefs is to learn everything you can before you get into it. Read books. Don't just go through culinary school or go through the process. You have to be dedicated to it 100%. It's not just a job; it's a lifestyle. So it's something you take home with you every day, and that's my favorite thing about the business. It's not for everybody, but definitely extend your resources, make connections, and just keep at it. start the process of building your menu. So I like to build my menus around what's available at the time, especially being in an area where there's so many local farms and very seasonal. So just picking out the best ingredients and building menu items around those ingredients. So my timer went off for the Clafoutis. We got some browning on there, nice caramelization. Peaches. Get a little bit of hot water here. Alright, so there it is. Peach Clafoutis with mint ice cream, some fresh peach garnish, and mint. My favorite course at Alinea. That was a rough night in Chicago with a lot of multi-course menus that included alcohol pairing. So I'm going to go ahead and call the I don't really remember card. I just remember it being amazing and a once-in-a-lifetime experience for sure. What advice would you give to students wanting to enter the field of hospitality during this uncertain time? I know that it's a little tricky right now. There's a lot of uncertainty about what restaurants are going to stay open, what restaurants can make it through, and just know that it is temporary. There will be major changes. I think for the rest of our careers, there's going to be changes, but as being a chef, you have to adapt to everything that's going on, no matter what the circumstances. And I think we're the most adaptable career there is. So I say stick with it if you love it, and there's always going to be employment in hospitality. Any questions I missed? All right, if nobody else has any questions, we're gonna go ahead and call that a wrap. And I appreciate everybody coming on and checking us out, and helping me cook.